Welcome back. You're watching the last edition of Business Morning on Channels Television. That is for the week and, of course, for the month of August. Well, today on the program, we'll be talking about business ethics. We know that making money itself is not a wrong thing or it's not a bad thing, but it is the manner in which some businesses conduct themselves that brings up the question of ethical behavior. And today, to talk about this issue, I'm being joined on the program by the co-founder, Convention for Business Integrity, Soji Apampan. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Well, let's start with knowing and understanding what business ethics is really all about.
Okay, business ethics is about the set of rules that businesses use to guide their decision making and to guide the behavior of the company as a whole and the individuals who make up the business. So if you want to understand how a business will behave in different scenarios, if you understand their approach to ethics, you can predict to an extent.
Ethics, is that like morality or?
Yes, it is the moral standards by which the company would like to be accepted. But since Nigeria is a very religious country, I don't want people to reduce it to morality. It's the set also of acceptable behaviors that people around the world have considered to be the minimum expected of someone in business, which hopefully is also moral, though that is what makes up business ethics, that set of rules.
So does this apply to people who work in the public sector and the private sector as well?
Certainly. Ethics is just a set of rules.
Yeah.
So it's a code of conduct, if you like. You know, what should my behavior be judged by? And when I am, therefore, in transaction, whether I'm sitting on the government side or on the business side, what governs that behavior should be the ethics of the business.
Well, is there a difference between corporate social responsibility, good governance, and business ethics? I just want us to delineate this before we go any further in our conversation.
Okay. Social responsibility, as the term goes, is that a business in relation to its host community or its environment decides that for what I'm doing, it would be good for me to give back. You know, so if I am to show myself as a responsible citizen, then I should also help others in my locale, or I should refrain from damaging their interests or refrain from anything else. That is usually just a nice to have. But in terms of business ethics, what is it that makes the business tick? Whether you're dealing with another company, or you're dealing with a supplier, or indeed you're dealing with social responsibility. The ethics is like the conscience of the company. But social responsibility are acts done towards the community. So there's a difference between the two.
Well, in your definition of what business ethics was really all about, you kind of referred to what is obtained globally, global best practices. Let's bring it back home. What's your assessment of the standard of business ethics here in Nigeria?
I think that word standard is not in business ethics in Nigeria. Because if people understood that there was a standard, then you shouldn't have such great variability. I think in Nigeria, anything goes is the standard of business in Nigeria. So long as no one is holding me to it. Yes, you can shout my name on the floor of the National Assembly, so long as nobody actually takes me to court over what you've accused me of, I continue life as before. Whereas if I were an ethical company, I'll be concerned, very concerned, because it's not part of the rules with which I run what I do. So I'll be concerned to clear my name. I'll be concerned to be seen to be clearly above board.
So what are the factors actually responsible for this? Why don't we have that conscience anymore in terms of especially business? Why isn't that consciousness, there anymore?
Let's take three things. First, people believe that those who do the right thing do not get ahead because of the right things they do. People also believe that those who do the wrong things are not sanctioned for the wrong things that they do. People also believe that there are no commonly agreed standards in Nigeria. So if you can't beat them, join them. And if you won't join them, go somewhere else. Go abroad or something. So with that kind of mentality, then they feel, why should we be ethical? What is even ethics?
But actually there are individuals and some companies that have practiced good business ethics who are here in Nigeria and who seem to be making, so much success. So are you saying that the percentage number of those people who actually practice ethical, good business ethics in their businesses are not as much as those other two categories that you mentioned?
That is correct, but don't take my word for it. Let's take the word of Standard & Poor's. Let's look at Moody's. Let's look at Nigeria, the way they see Nigeria. They say that they have consistently rated the sovereign a BB minus, 3 grades below investment grade for several reasons. 1, slowdown of reforms, we can understand that. But 2, corruption. 3, weak institutions, also a way of saying it's very difficult for you to uphold your standards. The way in which you do things is not dependable. So if you take corruption and you add it to that, plus our vulnerability to the oil price shocks, they think, well, you will remain at BB minus.
And that's not a good thing for the economy, is it?
It costs the economy. For every dollar that comes in through foreign direct investment, between 1.1 and 1.4 goes back out because it is short-term money that therefore comes because our BB minus means we're at a speculative grade. People are speculating. So even if you will find that CBN will be chasing itself to make the money available, CBN will be forced to try to push money to shore up the naira because of these trades, this movement of cash back and forth by foreign direct investors.
You say we're at BB minus,
Yes.
but sorry, just to cut you short
Yes.
there. You remember that the Ministry of Finance actually did a Eurobond roadshow for
Yes.
about 1 billion Eurobond, $1 billion
Yes.
in Eurobond. And the US was one of the biggest subscriber of that bond. Now, going from what you said, we seem to be kind of at a contradiction, so to speak. If we have the US and other investors from Europe and all the rest, being very interested in investing in the country, I maybe we should be thinking, or they should be thinking, as Standard & Poor's and the IMF and the rest of them, should be thinking of reassessing our investment quota from BB minus to something else. That's if the numbers are the way they are supposed to be.
No, you should go by the fundamentals. Do people want to speculate? Do you want to invest in bonds from the government? That's one thing. But what are they saying about the underlying trend? They've been saying the same thing since the first rating we got in 2006, which is that we're not doing enough on the issue of corruption, and it takes two, which is the link back to business ethics between government and people in business. That we're not attending enough to corruption, we're not attending enough to strengthening our institutions, and we're not doing enough to roll out the reforms that we've promised to do. And they are eager. If you read the text of what Moody's, for example, is saying, is that Nigeria could be rated much higher if they could only show progress in this area. So in terms of the cost of our attitude to business ethics, I'm saying there's a direct link. And it is costing us as a country. And because it is short-term money, maybe through the bond, we will raise some long-term money. But the 7 billion that was quoted for last year in terms of FDI was really short-term money. Even that was a drop on the previous year, about 21% drop from 2011 FDI. But people really, the serious money hasn't come yet. Nigeria may be attracting FDIs that are higher than other countries in Africa, but we're certainly not where we ought to be, given the attractiveness of what we have in our economy. So if the bond is oversubscribed, it's only telling you it's a very attractive proposition to invest in Nigeria. But it doesn't mean that the fundamentals have changed. And I think that's what the BB Minus is telling you. And they're urging the country to do things to try and improve the grade, because people do want to invest in Nigeria. So I'm trying to say there's a direct cost to business from the lackadaisical attitude to regulation, the lackadaisical attitude to self-regulation by companies through improved corporate governance. It is costing us as a country.
Well, let's look at still business ethics. We know that it should be part of every business, but when a company, for instance, does business with another that is considered unethical, does this make the first company unethical by association?
No, it makes that other company negligent, because it means they haven't done proper due diligence.
What if they've done due diligence and they feel that for this particular business that we need to do, this is a company to work with, we know that they have ethical issues, but we need to do this business anyway?
Okay, let's go to a case study. Let me not be hypothetical. Let's look at Halliburton and let's look at Kellogg. We hear a lot about the scandal involving Halliburton in Nigeria, but it was actually Kellogg, the company they bought, that had done the misdeeds. And today, it's Halliburton's credibility that has gone down, not Kellogg's. Who cares about Kellogg's? It's Halliburton. So exactly what you said. If you then, having known this, choose to do business with someone who is unethical,